So thank you guys for joining us here on the I Believe podcast. I'm here with Ron Cribb, who's from Auckland, New Zealand, and I'm going to briefly introduce him in just a couple minutes. But before I do that, let me just run through a couple housekeeping, things to go through. First, if you have not noticed or seen on social media yet, there's a post that looks like this. If you're looking, it's from the Insight Registry, and it's just talking about how the Insight Registry is celebrating its second birthday. And during the dates of June 22nd through July 22nd, if you have not participated in the registry yet, feel free to go ahead and start your own registry portal. And you can go ahead and you can start your registry and complete your surveys. And for doing that, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card per request. You can also complete the rest of your surveys if, say, you already started your account, but you haven't finished. But I can't remember how many surveys there are, but let's say there's 5 and you finished 3 of them and you finished the other 2. Then you can also receive a $20 gift card for doing that, just as a special thank you this month. And if you have completed all of your surveys because you did that a while ago and you can go in and you can update your information this year, then we would just encourage you to go ahead and update your information. And again, for updating your information, even if you already have an account, completed your previous surveys, you can still receive a $20 Amazon gift card. So this is just a part of our birthday celebration for the insight.imrare.org registry. Make sure to reach out to us if you have any questions, but just head to that website and you can start your registry, complete your surveys, or just complete your surveys period, or update your information and you will get a gift back from us as a thank you. That ends on July 22nd. Your surveys, everything that needs to be completed needs to be done by July 22nd. And then just please allow 2 to 4 weeks after July 22nd for gift cards to be sent out based on who's met those criteria. Another announcement that we have, if you haven't seen it, again, over on Facebook, over on our Instagram page, our I Believe seminar coming up October 14th through 15th in Nashville, Tennessee is happening. We are doing both a virtual event and an in-person event. And Dr. David Reichstein, Tennessee Retina, and top physicians and experts are going to be coming together for various workshops, educational sessions on living with ocular melanoma. We'll obviously mix in a little bit of fun in person for Nashville around, going around the town and just visiting and learning some of the history of Nashville. And if you are coming in person, please be aware that there is a welcome reception for cocktails on October 13th at 6 p.m. and that's for in-person only. But you're going to head to the registration link, which you can find in our link in bio, or you can just reach out directly to us and we'll give it to you. And just go ahead and get registered and get your flights, get your hotels in order if you're planning to come, and we would love to see you there in person. Okay, so that's the main information that I have for you today. So let's just kick it over here and we're going to introduce Ron from New Zealand. Like I said, he's from Auckland and he was actually diagnosed with iris melanoma in September 2021. And we actually connected, I think was it on TikTok first? Yeah, I think it was TikTok.
Yeah,
you found a video and you messaged me or I messaged you and it was just crazy. But you sent me the pictures of your iris prosthetic and I was just blown away. I've never seen that before. I mean, of course, most of us have never seen anything like all of the stuff that we're dealing with this cancer. But Ron, do you want to go ahead and just tell us a little about yourself?
Yep. I live in Auckland in New Zealand. I'm 48 years old and I'm an operations manager for a transport company, delivering goods all over the country. Just a normal bloke, live with my wife and 4 daughters. Probably a typical male. I don't go to the doctor as often as I should do, but that's how we find out these things.
All right. So talk to us, I guess, a little bit about what led to your diagnosis in September of last year.
Yeah, so I thought that I had good eyesight or normal eyesight or good enough eyesight anyway for all of the day-to-day things that I needed to do. But I found myself just borrowing people's glasses to watch the sports on TV or something like that, and so then when you do borrow the glasses and you look at them and it's kind of like going from a black and white TV to a color TV sort of thing. So you think, oh wow, that's amazing, and then I guess the family started encouraging me to go and see an optometrist, and of course I was reluctant, and it wasn't until we were right outside the shop that I sort of decided, let's go in and just see what they say. I'm sure my eyes are fine. I'm sure it's just, something like that. and that was like just in the mall sort of thing, mall situation. But when I did go in there, it took a long time for them to analyse my eyes, analyse my sight, whatever. And it came to a point where he just said, your next stop's going to be hospital, not you don't even need to worry about glasses. You got a what he called a lesion, a freckle, a discoloration in my eye actually that he wasn't happy with, and he didn't really give me much details. But well, the next day was the COVID thing hit New Zealand, and we all went into the big lockdown, and nobody was going out, and nothing was happening. But somehow the hospital had gotten a hold of all of my details and suggested that it was something that was fairly serious, and that so pretty much they opened up the hospital for me, and I went in there, and they had a look at it, and then they just said, that's just something that has to come out, which is a little bit confusing to me because I've seen a lot of other people's cases that that's not necessarily the way that they deal with it in other countries or anywhere else really. That, and I don't know of anyone else with the same situation.
Yeah, because yours was specifically on the iris. So for anyone listening who's not familiar with the color parts of the eye, but that's the colored part of your eye. So the iris is on the front. So you're basically saying it was like a freckle on that colored part of your eye.
Yeah, so I got blue eyes, but probably an entire quarter or more of my blue of the eye turned brown, and I wasn't really sure how long it had been like that for.
Yeah.
But my doctor, the ophthalmologist at the hospital, that's the way that we do it here, he actually said, have you got any good photos, good quality photos from the last 10, 15 years sort of thing? And we found some photos that were good enough quality, and they used the photos to determine the age of it. Mm-hmm. And so obviously that threw a lot of concern into the situation because it wasn't there when I was 20, 25, sort of 30, and it just sort of come along sometime after that, in that time frame. So I hear a lot of people saying that they had to go back to the doctor again and that they would measure it later and things like that, which concerns me that things can get out of control, before you would expect it. And maybe it's already out of control, but doctors erring on the side of caution, or for whatever reason, they seem to make people wait.
Yeah, and it's tricky, I think, too, just because, when they're monitoring something that looks like a freckle, if they don't have the training or if they don't have the research background to understand, specifically what is going on here, and why are we monitoring it to begin with, then yeah, I think that sometimes, we've had cases, way too many cases across the world of people who have, waited for too long, and it got to a point that their doctor, kind of watched it for far too long to the point that it got too aggressive too fast. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that with your doctor, he was pretty straightforward about like, hey, we have to take this out. Like we can't leave this untreated. We need to treat it now.
Yeah, there was no ifs or buts or not even talking about it. He seemed to be in a hurry to say this is what needs to be done, and there was no other options. Maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that. It was we're going to cut this out.
So what was your initial reaction to him hearing or him telling you, we need to cut a tiny section of your eyeball off and replace it?
Yeah, he's a man is from Oman, so he had a little bit of an accent that I had never heard the accent before, and I was trying to work out if it was the accent or I missed what he said or I misinterpreted what he said, and I had to roll it over and over in my mind, multiple times, and I just sort of asked him a question, repeated it back to him, and said, "Are you sure? You mean cut it? The eye? That's not something I've ever heard of before, and I don't know how you can live with a hole in your eye." But the more I repeated it to him, the more he just repeated it back to me and said, it's straightforward. It's not a problem.
This is what we need to do.
Yeah, I can do it.
Well, okay, that's crazy. Okay, so
Crazy.
you had the tumor was in the iris, and they were able to basically like cut off that section of your iris, and like did they explain like how did they know that they had excised or cut off like the entire tumor? Like did they do any other scans to like check and make sure? Like kind of what did they do leading up to this procedure for you to verify that it hadn't spread somewhere else?
Yeah, the whole thing obviously happened really fast. We're talking about a couple of weeks sort of thing, from the first initial seeing them and getting into hospital. In the meantime, all in the same building, they ran tests for my liver, scans and blood tests and all that sort of thing. And so then all of a sudden, I'm having an operation. We're going in to have the operation sort of thing. And he was happy that nothing had spread to the liver. And the lesion in the iris, it was definitely on the iris, but it also went quite deep into my eye too. So he had sort of also told me that it's kind of like the biggest one that they've seen. And a lot of people have a freckle somewhere and you can't actually see it with the naked eye, but, you could see at least an entire quarter of my eye discoloured. And when we knew what it was, you knew what it was sort of thing. Obviously, prior to that, I just thought I was special. I got half a brown eye and half a blue eye sort of thing. But yeah, I was more concerned about the procedure because I'm imagining a knife and I'm imagining a big knife or something that's bigger than my eye, bigger than the actual iris. Mm-hmm. But then he kind of explained to me that it's kind of the size of a needle and it had a little, like an earth moving equipment where it could bite it. And then I could see from another photo where when he took the bites out of it, it's kind of like a flower shape, petals. So there were tiny, tiny little bites. And somehow I've got to get my head around the rest of it. But, he took all the little bits out.
Yeah.
And he assured me that he could get maybe...
It's like it's medically, it's insane like that they're able to do something like that. But I'm glad they were able to. Okay, so you had this procedure and it, removed the tumor completely. You said it went pretty deep down in your eye. So afterwards, how long did you have for the healing process before you were able to get this iris prosthetic that you have?
Yeah, so that's in late September. So here in New Zealand, that was going on spring, and so when I woke up, obviously I had this hole in my eye, which the hole was no longer the problem. The problem was that my iris doesn't work, so all light would go into the side of my eye and go into my eye, whereas normally with my other eye, it will filter light. So I was so extremely sensitive to light, it was, kind of painful for certainly the first, few weeks with all the multitude of eye drops that you need to use. And I had a lot of problems with the pressure, which is something that I need to get my head around as well. The idea of pressure being inside my eye, like I'm thinking hydraulics and things like that. But yes, I still don't really know how it works. But obviously, there's pressure in your eye, and I kept on having numbers that they said, it could go up to 50, and my numbers were over 50, sort of thing. And thanks to our friend Google, it says if you had that for more than 24 hours, you would be blind, sort of thing. So obviously, I can see the concern with it, and I had a few instances, in the follow up, the preceding, the afterwards time, sort of thing that happened to me.
Yeah, so the pressure just escalated, and did they have to treat the pressure?
Yeah, and so they have to relieve the pressure in that squeamish way that you can imagine. But I didn't really have pain. It's not the sort of thing.
No, that's good.
You with eye drops and stuff takes away most of the pain. It's more the squeamish thoughts around it. Yeah. that is the worst thing for sure.
So now, like you mentioned, that because of the iris not working properly, that causes a lot of sensitivity to light. So after kind of these these follow-up appointments and things that were happening with the pressure in your eye. Are you still able to see at this point out of that eye, or like what is your vision like today?
Yeah, no, well, I have lost vision, and then you could say maybe 20%, and I'm still going back for my follow-up sort of stuff. Is still ongoing now, and that's the kind of thing I'm looking forward to now. The final results and that everything is finally clear and all that sort of thing. But yes, I just had an awful summer with all the curtains closed the whole time, just to filter out the light. I worked from home, and so it was a very long summer, stuck inside sort of thing. It took me a little while straight afterwards, maybe a week or two, to handle movement around me. Anything that went past me seemed to be a blur sort of thing, and I wasn't sort of keeping up with what was happening. My own self was fine, but anything that moved around me, because it seemed to move faster than normal, just made me dizzy. So,
just very disorienting. And
yeah, so the same thing, which is just kind of weird. It's not a painful thing or anything, but it's extremely weird. I kind of got used to that after a week or two, being inside the house. But when I tried to venture outside the house, are we frozen?
I can hear you.
I
fine.
got you back. Sorry, it froze for a second. The venturing outside the house, traffic going past me was a blur, and so then of course you're worried about crossing the road and things like that, because your senses don't seem to be working properly. The attrition of receiving the information to your brain is sort of out of whack, sort of thing.
Yeah. So that's just taken, it's been, I don't even know how many months it's been specifically, but I guess you're coming up on a year from your diagnosis. So would you say that you've gotten more used to it now, or do you still feel like it's pretty sporadic, that sometimes you're still adjusting to just how it feels to see the way that you see now?
Yeah, I'm not sure if tiredness sets in later on in the day or something like that, but or that I've tried to look at a computer screen for too long, things like that. I've also got a new lens in my eye as well, so they put a plus 25 magnification lens into my eye and did cataracts all at the same time, sort of thing. And so it's getting used to that.
Definitely getting used to all of that. So I guess what would you say are maybe the top 2 or 3 things that you've learned through this experience that you would want to kind of pass on to maybe somebody else who either hasn't gotten their eyes checked, or who's had changes happen, or just is dealing with this kind of a thing on a similar basis, maybe in a similar life phase as you? Like what would you want to pass on as like maybe some wisdom or some advice?
Don't be like me. The going and getting things looked at, whether it's your eyes or anything else. Especially us blokes in the ManCave, we overlook these things or put them off, too often, and there really is something happening. And I was super lucky, to find out what was happening in good time, sort of thing. And of course, just need to look after yourself.
Yeah.
People,
I guess, go ahead.
Going through any of these types of things, I'd like to say that I didn't, suffer terribly in a bad way or anything like that. Of course, I stayed positive, but wasn't a painful experience. Even if I tell my neighbour, he gets a bit squeamish and he doesn't really want to hear all the details of it. But I'm quite confident, having been through all of this. It was quite a lucky experience, at least.
Yeah.
But I hope that people aren't sort of over worrying themselves, which I could have done quite easily. But I think with the speed of the way it worked, I was confident the whole time. Almost enjoyed the time off work. all that recuperation.
Well, I feel like that's fortunate in the sense that, if you're going to have a type of melanoma or a type of procedure, like that, this one, could end up being maybe a lesser of the extremes as far as recovery goes and things like that. And obviously you've, had lots to get used to and adjust to, but And so I don't want to like, invalidate that experience because that still is very valid.
Right.
So your tumor was completely taken out, and we talked a little bit before we got on here about the biopsy. So were you able to have a biopsy done? And if so, do you know like how those results came about, or like where did they send it for testing?
No, I don't know too much because, as I said, we were in a lockdown at the time, and
Hmm.
yeah, the extremely short staffed, and so I basically just spoke to a surgeon that I called my doctor, but he was basically just the surgeon, and he just gave me the facts that were there, and he's always telling me he's going to update me, sort of thing, and it's still a little bit of work in progress. I'm back there on Monday for final results and that sort of thing to make
Okay,
sure
awesome.
that's all
Well,
done.
I mean, definitely keep me posted on that.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
sure.
I hope that the results of it are still, good results. I know you said that your like liver scans and everything so far had been clean.
Yeah.
So hopefully it stays that way for you. So have you had regular scans to this point, or have they kind of been sporadic? Maybe like I guess I'm curious if you go for scans, you went at the beginning in September, so then do you have them every 3, 6
Mm.
months, once a year? What does it look like so far?
I actually haven't had any more scans, and it's always like when we put the prosthetic iris in, they assumed that there was still some stuff in there that needed to be removed, and they would try to take it out at the same time as they did the second procedure, and then they're just so confident that the way that they take it out, they must remove everything. And then they said
Hmm.
that they thought it looked good at the time, and I'll find out Monday, Tuesday, those
Yeah,
final
well,
results again.
hopefully they get you those results because I can't even like that kind of delay would be crazy. Um, let's see. Are you back? Or did I
Yeah,
freeze?
sorry,
That's okay.
someone.
Um,
Yeah,
so how has this affected like, just things in your family life? And like just in your relationships, like with your daughters, like do you feel like you look at life any differently now than you used to?
definitely look at things a lot differently. I'm just not sweating the small stuff anymore. I'm just getting on with it. My kids looked after me, to the max. Shout out to them. They looked after me the whole time. The eye drops, and that was, a real nightmare to start with. And they had turns and took shifts and made sure that I took all the eye drops and everything. And I guess that will be long term beneficial to me. But yeah, and I love them even more than I could possibly love them before. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, that's awesome.
just
They
positive.
sound
It's all
like a good
positive.
group of girls. They sound like an
Yeah,
awesome group of
definitely, yeah.
people.
Yeah,
Good humans.
we're
Um,
all happy.
okay, so has this diagnosis changed, any of your like future goals for yourself as far as like what you want to do for life or with your life, I should say? Whoop, hold on. We paused. Oh, the joys of internet across the world. We got this. All right, we're gonna hope it lets you get back on, Ron. All right, guys, Ron will be back in just a minute. Sometimes we lose the internet. It's great. But I just let him know that he was able to jump back on, um, and then we will be back.
Are we back?
You are back. Okay, welcome
Oh,
back.
technology,
sometimes,
technology.
sometimes
Yeah.
this happens, but the good news is
Mm.
that the recording studio can handle it. So I'm just going to make an editing note for Paige, and then we'll get going again. Okay, so Ron, I guess just to conclude, is there anything that you feel like you want to share just overall or just to kind of like end and talk about where you are right now and where you hope to see life go, like your future goals or things, like has anything changed, and what you hope to like kind of see out of your life?
Yeah, well, I just want to see everything that I could see before, and just carry on as normal. Really, I'm quite happy with life, work, family. Very happy with that.
Yeah,
I
well, I
do
think
want to
that's
say
great.
that this technology, this prosthetic iris, it came from Germany, and I had to wait for it for a little while. That was the main thing for the time span. But when I did get it, I'm amazed at the technology, and so how it works and how they put it in and all that sort of thing. And the reason why I probably found you on social media was because I'm really, really trying to find other people who have had this procedure, or in this style, that was the only option to do it, and that yeah, still seem to be looking for those people with the same
So like just the
diagnosis,
same, like
and
an iris melanoma that
the way that
then
it
also
happened,
has an
cutting it
iris
out.
prosthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't
Well,
heard of people
it's a
cutting
very
it out.
unique type.
Yeah, and I don't know
Okay,
if that's
well,
a
I
New
mean, I
Zealand
guess if
thing or
you're,
what. Yeah.
yeah, well, I doubt that it's just New Zealand, but let's hope that we can get you in touch with some people who have also
Yeah.
experienced this. So if you are someone who's listening and you know someone who's had an iris melanoma like Ron, put them in touch with him. He's over in the ManCave on Facebook. He's also on Instagram and Facebook, so you can find him, Ron Cribb. Or you can just reach out to us and I'll make sure to connect you with him. But Ron, thank you so much for taking the time to just tell us your story briefly, and just we're glad that everything is going well so far. And hopefully, as you go through the future, next few months, as you figure out your biopsy results and just kind of move forward with post-procedure care, like hopefully you have just good results and get to just keep living the rest of your life. Because I think it's amazing that you've been able to just weather this in a way that
Yeah.
that has allowed you just to like focus on, the here and the now, and just like you said, not sweat the small stuff.
Yep. I appreciate your time, and I love telling the story anyway, so it's all good.
Well, you did great. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, you
Thank
guys, we're
you.
going to go ahead and end the live stream. There we go. It's like hitting the wrong button almost.